Today we talk about managing yourself, thinking of yourself as I Incorporated or I Unlimited in order to increase your brand, and that enhancement of your brand, who you are, what kind of manager, what kind of leader, what kind of coach you want to be remembered for, should be enhanced on a regular basis. Now, when we think about improving ourselves and our character, how we want to be remembered as a manager, as a leader, keep in mind that the past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. So we should learn from the past, but it does not mean we should dwell on it or actually live there. Les Brown, the famous motivational speaker, said that most people fail in life not because they aim too high and miss, but rather because they aim too low and hit. So as managers, we need to have high standards for ourselves and obviously for our departments. Think of your body as this $1 million giant. Imagine that if you had a winning horse and you paid $2 million for it, how good would you take care of that horse? You would probably take care of it very well, provided good food, even hire trainers to take care of that horse so it can keep on winning for you. Well, think of yourself, your own body, as this $1 million giant, so you can see your total lifetime value for yourself, for your family, for your department, for your organization, and for society in general. So if you think of your lifetime value as a professional, then obviously you will continue to enhance your overall value and overall brand through education, through continuous learning. My suggestion, as Dr. Stephen Covey has always said, is to take some time every single week for yourself, to develop yourself mentally, socially, spiritually, and physically. Even if you take about half an hour every other day in a given week, that's a lot of time obviously for personal development, personal improvement in all those dimensions. You see, if you do not do something beyond what you've always done and what you've actually mastered, you will not grow physically, technically, socially, or even conceptually when we talk about managerial skills. So when we think about leadership and succession planning and development in organizations, in even managerial positions, how do modern organizations select their future leaders? They look for strong rudders in wheels that steer leaders steadily during uncertain, unpredictable, and continuously changing times. These rudders in wheels are indicative of future performance. In other words, what is it that a leader has done or a candidate has done in the past that's more likely to be done again in the future. In a way, it shows some predictors of effective leadership on the part of the candidate. So the goal is to understand yourself in the I Incorporated, the I Unlimited brand, and then find the right job and then continue to enhance your professional image and value over time. Enhancing the I Incorporated brand value is a very important skill for effective and sustainable management in any part of the world. What are some of these traits that companies look for? Well, there are many. Well, one important one is always going to be certain leadership traits, the traits that contribute to being a successful leader. You see, based on research, we know that there are managers who are very good, and then there are managers who are not so good. There are managers who are also visionaries, which means they can serve as leaders as well. And then there are visionaries or leaders who are not necessarily good managers at times. So we need to fall in that small category of individuals who are leaders and managers. So that's a small gap. You need to be a part of that, and you need to figure out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and obviously capitalize on the strengths and enhance the weaknesses so you are prepared for any leadership position which requires management functions or leadership traits. You see, Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, once mentioned that the quality of leader is reflected in the standards that he or she sets for him or herself and obviously the department. So the skills, experiences, traits, and drivers that correlate with success in senior executive or leadership positions are somewhat different than those that are required for middle management or entry-level supervisory or management ranks. Effective management skills and abilities do not simply spring up into existence when a person is promoted into leadership. However, they tend to manifest and grow over the course of a person's career. All high potential leaders are marked by various traits, or some people call them signposts, that indicate their likelihood of future success. Overall, the clearer these signals on the greatest number of these attributes or traits, the better the odds that a person will exhibit superior or great leadership performance as a manager, or obviously any part of the hierarchy in the rank. Even though every leader's career success is unique, their paths into leadership tend to follow somewhat a predictable course of action. Now, identifying those high potential leaders early lets an organization to deliberately develop future executives for succession planning in development as part of their strategic goal in the organization. When sizing up an employee to gauge his or her potential to excel as a senior leader, companies often look at various traits and facets. Often these are somewhat measurable, which tend to predict the performance in future roles. So it could be a track record of previous experiences, the ability to be able to learn quickly and adjust. Most importantly, self-awareness. What are my strengths and what are my weaknesses? Those leadership traits that I mentioned, the drive to be more than you are today, having that motivation to obviously continue to grow. Aptitude for logic and reasoning and using rational statements, obviously, when dealing with others, be they employees, be they customers, be they peers, or obviously any stakeholder as part of a union and so on. And finally, to be able to manage certain risks that might obviously derail you from your career progress. Being able to manage your emotions. So one of them is basically your ability to learn, and willingness to learn from experience and apply that learning to perform under new and very different circumstances or conditions. You see, to succeed, leaders will have to tackle often new and sometimes the never before and yet unknown, and drive positive results at the meantime. Because ultimately it's our behavioral changes and the final outcome that counts as part of our success. I tend to believe, like many other executives and leaders, in the philosophy of leadership as the 3L philosophy. So when I go into a new organization, a new department, I like to listen to the employees and staff so they can tell me what in the world is going on in their department. So listening leads to learning, which is the second L in this 3L philosophy. And finally, as a result of listening, learning, I lead. That's my leadership philosophy. So I lead based on obviously what I learn based on the conditions of the environment, the department, obviously other forces that might be impacting the decision. So people who learn from experience not only glean multiple varied lessons from their experiences, they also apply those lessons in order to be effective in situations they're confronting at any given time. They are skilled at recognizing and extracting the underlying principles of the challenge, no matter how well disguised those principles might be. About 15% of global workforce are highly agile or flexible learners. Securing this kind of talent is becoming very important differentiator for businesses that are trying to obviously be ahead of the pack. About 25 to 30% of Fortune 100 companies tend to assess the learning ability or agility of internal and external candidates before they're hired for high-performing positions. So learning ability and flexibility is especially crucial during job transitions, during promotions, going from one company to the next. because you're dealing with new and unfamiliar circumstances and situations. So instead of automatically defaulting to your favorite past solutions or problem-solving techniques, keep in mind that learning agile leaders apply fresh and new approaches, ideas, and solutions and techniques to solve those new tough problems. So be obviously a leader that continuously learns so you can successfully apply the lessons of the past in new ways and obviously for new problems. Another element of good, flexible leaders nowadays to be able to manage the derailment risk, the risk of failure in new positions. Peter Drucker a long time ago said that rank does not confer privilege or give power. It imposes responsibility. Unfortunately, we have too many leaders that abuse their authority and their power in the department, in the organization, with their employees, with their colleagues, with their customers, and obviously with the community sometimes. It is estimated about 30 to 50% of high potential leaders and executives derail. In other words, they self-destruct, ruining their own careers and possibly hurting their own organizations or departments. So derailment in this context refers to a manager or leader who cannot control his or her emotions, in self-destructs, ruining his or her brand value, his or her level of integrity, and obviously future promotional or job opportunities, not to mention that he or she might be damaging the reputation of his or her company at the same time. So the risks related to derailment go up at the higher job levels. In other words, expectations are higher, and consequences of failure tend to increase as you move up the ranks of management levels. At the same time, there are certain behaviors that don't become a career risk until a leader moves up higher into the management ranks. Leaders who have reached higher levels appear to have more derailment factors. They may be perceived as over-controlling or micromanaging. They may even come across as more arrogant and sometimes entitled, or perhaps people experience them as being more self-centered and maybe a bit derogatory at times. So success as a leader stems from the energy and commitment of the people being led. Derailers undermine trust in and willingness to follow a leader and are therefore considered more damaging. Again, the goal here is to understand yourself in the I Incorporated, the I Unlimited Incorporation, find the right job, and then continue enhancing your professional brand through this self-awareness. Enhancing the I Incorporated brand value, again, is very important if you want to be the right manager, if you want to be a career manager, if you want to make management and leadership your profession. Sadly, 85% of people are not happy with their day-to-day jobs in today's modern workplace. In other words, they're spending 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day in a job that they're not very happy with. So number one, in terms of success for self-awareness, would be to find the right job and then achieve self-mastery in it in order to enhance your brand. In a survey of over 1,000 employees, 45% said that they had worked for abusive bosses. 45% of people said they work for abusive bosses. What kind of boss are you? What kind of manager are you? Are you a good manager? A manager that will be remembered in the years to come as being positive, developed mentor, a coach, a person who could even be befriended by colleagues and employees? The good news is that about 40% of managers are considered to be excellent in their professions, in their jobs. Hopefully you fall in that category. Unfortunately, about 30% of managers lack the necessary skills and knowledge to do their jobs well. Sometimes we take a very good employee and we promote him or her to be a manager, so we get a lousy manager at times. At the meantime, we lose a very good employee let's be very careful in who we promote, how we promote, and how we develop them for the management responsibilities, because chances are it is very different from what people did in their previous jobs. Sadly, there are at least 3 types of managers that are perceived to be ineffective or bad. Number 1 are those who do not know how to do their job. That's about 30% of managers. Second would be those that do not want to do their required tasks. Somehow they hang on to their previous jobs, or they just obviously ignore the required tasks. The third type would be those who don't care. So if we have these 3 types of managers in our organizations, what will happen if we don't do anything about it? Well, eventually we go bankrupt. We become less competitive compared to, obviously, our competitors. Some of your best talent might leave and work for your competitors. So if you want them to work for you, to be around your company and your department, then obviously you have to convert these managers that are perceived to be ineffective or bad into good managers. So how do we do that? Well, those managers that do not want to do their jobs, well, explain to them how the job is being done. Show them, train them, develop them, and perhaps use a Theory X style of management where you're monitoring them, giving them the specifics of what needs to be done, how it should be done, and then obviously give them feedback. Those who do not know how to do the job, well, we need to start from scratch. We need to re-examine why they are promoted and obviously provide them the required training before they can be promoted or before they can be ready to be on their own. The third category, those who don't care. Well, these are probably the worst type of employees and managers to have in your company. These are the individuals that you need to deal with immediately because they can seriously damage your brand in your department and obviously the department's brand or the company's brand overall. So you need to orally talk with them immediately, maybe in a written format, provide them a reprimand, and if that doesn't fix the problem, then terminate them. So in the workplace, perhaps nothing is worse than having a bad boss or being a bad boss. The overwhelming reason why people leave their jobs is because of a bad or ineffective boss. Bad bosses are all too prevalent, and there are no magic wands in dealing with managers who are considered to be bad. When you're faced with an ineffective manager or a bad boss, you can try to find a way to let it not bother you. Number 2, you can influence and manage up based on the type of boss you have. Even though you don't have formal authority in dealing with your bosses, but you can always obviously influence them through rational thinking by offering good solutions, even though they don't have to listen to you. But you can change that by being an influential employee or individual associate in the company. Number 3, you can talk to your boss. Give him more feedback about the stresses that he or she is actually putting on you or imposing on you or in the department. And if none of those work, then there's a 4th option. That means find a new job, a new company. Either inside the company, a transition or a new job might be available, or you find a new company outside the organization. There are certain key success factors for managers, and let me just share a few of them. Number 1, get your job done on time and with good quality so you can be perceived as a positive or an excellent manager. Number 2, communicate well and give proper feedback to your employees at all times. Number 3, delegate clearly with empowerment. And when you're delegating, it's not just basically telling people you can do anything you want to. You have to provide them the training, the education, the skill, as well as the authority that goes with it. And then be a support or resource for them. Number 4, motivate and engage your employees. The more you know them at a personal level, the more likely that you can engage them properly. And number 5, have an open door policy. This is probably one of the best ways to get people to share knowledge with you, to be committed to your company. So, let me ask you this question. Are you a manager that others want to work for? Are you a professional that others want to be around? Do other people want to come and be on your team? If the answer is yes, you're doing a good job. Keep it up. If not, you can do regular interviews with colleagues and employees to find out why they would not want to work with you or be around you. The goal is obviously to change their perceptions. So my suggestion for all managers is to regularly interview your employees. Ask them, what do you love about your job? What will keep you here in the department? Or you can ask them, what might motivate you to leave this organization? Under what circumstances would you obviously go someplace else? You see, Mary Parker Follett a long time ago mentioned that the primary task of management is to arrange the situation so that people cooperate readily of their own accord. That, I believe, is the job of the manager, to create an environment where people want to come to work, where people want to do their jobs. So again, improve yourself and be the type of a leader that other people want to be around, other people want to work with. You can do it.